Hey everyone, Curse Deck Builder here, making our way to 10,000 decks assisted. And here we are with our second deck of the day, Angus Mackenzie. I'm going to call this Pillowforter, but the deck builder calls it Pillowforter Trolley Fog Stall Swarm Counters deck and Mill, all combined into one. I'll find a way to sum that up for the thumbnail. But this is Angus Mackenzie, brought to us by Sharok, who graciously has donated to the channel to bring their deck to the front of the queue. They say they have mana issues and looking for some upgrades with better win cons. They say the deck is a bit outdated, and their budget is $1,400. Okay, we're not going to use all of that, but it's good. It's good to know. Good for you. Let's see what we can do to improve the deck. If you'd like to send me your own deck for me to take a look at and, make a video of, there is a link in the video description down below to do so. And if you would like to bring your deck to the front of the queue to make it the next deck I work on, there is a link for a place you can support the channel and do so. Finally, if you'd like to take a look at this deck list yourself, or, maybe take a look later because you find it interesting, it is also in the video description, all of it accessible for you at any time. I've said that so many times now, you think I'd be less clunky at it, but I don't think I ever will be. So who is Angus Mackenzie? Why are we using them for our Pillowforter Extreme deck? Maybe that's what I'll call it. Well, what's interesting is the deck builder themselves talks about how Angus isn't the linchpin of the deck, but let's take a look anyways. Angus Mackenzie is 3 mana 2/2 human cleric in Bant. That's green, white, and blue. And has one activated ability, green, white, and blue, prevent all combat damage that would be dealt this turn. And interestingly here, there's a little bit of... Yes, the Oracle text has an extra line that says activate only before the combat damage step, which means you can only fog ahead of, combat being declared. So end of main phase 1. Particularly useful, but, at the same time, a little clunky because you don't know what's coming at you at that point. But, any experienced Magic player can suss out if they're about to be attacked. That being said, you can also just fog as many turns as you want, as long as you keep untapping your mana and Angus Mackenzie to just aggravate your opponents to no end. So, with a fog commander and quite a bit of fogs indeed, this is definitely, I'm going to call it it's what we call Pillowforter or stacks, but it's a setup deck. It's a defensive deck. We're trying to make the game, make it so our opponents have a hard time taking us out of the game, especially with combat damage, and then we're going to sneak in for a win near the end. So, taking a look at that, let's take a look at the deck. Well, I'm going to say for the most part, I really, really like the deck. Taking a look at the mana curve is generally very good. We have quite a few cards at 3 mana, but as mentioned before, our commander is not the most important part of our deck, so that's not too much of a problem. He's more like a companion, if that makes sense, for those who are familiar with companions. More like an additional card you start off with, as opposed to like the crux of the deck, which is fun. I do like that. But the deck itself does have some weak points. And I think the biggest and the most visible weak point is a lack of mana ramp or mana fixing. Now, the land setup isn't that bad. It's more to do with the fact that we have 34 lands with such a wide curve, and in addition, we have 1 artifact land, 1 cultivate, 1 Kodama's Reach, and that's our ramp. Now, I'm going to quickly look there in case I missed anything, and I don't believe I have. That's... I guess Koira's -1. Poor Koira, coming in with 2 loyalty. Life has been really hard on her. Land tax isn't ramp, it's pseudo-ramp, and yeah. We are severely lacking mana ramp in a deck that can very, very easily use mana ramp to its advantage. In addition, it's definitely playing some as our deck builder said, outdated cards, I would say, for the power level it's going for. Notably, our Planeswalkers kind of stick out quite a bit as being just not the tier of power that you would see these days. And in addition, we have quite a wide net of win conditions, many of which are a little redundant, let's say. Now, don't get me wrong, I do generally like these win conditions, and I don't want to, and I'm definitely going to keep a few, but there is some interesting like measures of play between them. For example, Azor's Elocutors. Azor's Elocutors and Darksteel Reactor are very, very similar cards, both of which represent at the beginning of upkeep you put a counter, and then when you have enough counters, you will win the game. Darksteel needs to get to 20. Elocutors needs to get to 5 without being attacked. And I actually missed one. Helix Pinnacle is here, where once you have 100 mana fed into the Pinnacle, you will win the game. Now, these three, I would argue, are probably the weakest ones. There is one weaker, but we'll get to that in a second, where the main problem is that these cards are not immune to removal. Helix Pinnacle has Shroud, Darksteel Reactor has Indestructible, and the Elocutors are just there, I guess. They have 5 toughness. That's what makes them hard to remove. Unfortunately, as many of us know in Modern Commander, these things are not hard to remove at all. Mass exile effects are very, very accessible. Farewell being the premier one. Merciless Eviction, of course. Regular board clears that destroy all permanents will hit Helix Pinnacle and Elocutors. And Darksteel Reactor is a sacrifice or exile away from going away. What's even rough is all of these cards can be blinked. You know, if I play a card that will blink permanents, let's say I can't target Helix Pinnacle, that's okay. But I can blink the Darksteel Reactor, effectively resetting it to 0, therefore, you know, putting it in a position that it's never going to go off in the first place. I would also argue that it was never going to go off in the first place. The card that combos with these is Vorel of the Hullclade as a proliferation kind of thing, but it doesn't actually proliferate, it actually doubles it, which I do like. I think this is a strong combo, but it doesn't work with Helix Pinnacle, of course, because Helix Pinnacle cannot be targeted, and it doesn't work with Darksteel Reactor as well, because 20 is a very high number, whereas the Elocutors are the best target while being the most fragile of the bunch. Quite an interesting conundrum here. So right off the bat, what I want to do is remove 2 of 3. I think I'm going to leave this up to deck builder, but like I think if I want the quickest one, like the most I'm going to win now one, it'd be Vorel and Elocutors, though you need to give Vorel haste. But if I want the consistent one, I think Helix Pinnacle, because you just need to have, you know, 3 turns where you can make 20 plus, 4 turns you can make 20 plus mana. I'm thinking like if you can make 30 mana would be better, so that you can still have mana like left to cast spells. That should be more than enough, especially with cards such as Seaborn Muse, which will untap all your lands. All your permanents, which combos with our commander among just being a good card. So those are the 2, like I would keep Helix Pinnacle and toss the other 2. On the other side, we have Divine Intervention, which tells me you're a bad person. This is the card that says there's 2 counters, and you remove a counter each upkeep, and then when the last counter is removed, the game is a draw. If you played this card, I think my reaction would be I would just treat this as you win the game, because I don't want the game to end in a draw. That's not particularly good. And an 8 mana, you know, card with no protection that says, hey, you know, 3 turns from now you win the game, assuming you can't have other ways to remove counters, which you definitely could, is fine. I think I'd be fine with that. But if you're not playing against me, a lot of your opponents will actually treat this like it's a card that's a draw. And they may get a little salty because, you know, you haven't won the game, but you have ended the game. I don't know to what degree they'll like that. This is really a table power level thing. This might be a card you have to be prepared to side out sometimes. For me personally, I wouldn't mind. Like I said, it is just a spell that wins the game in my mind. But you know, it might be a bit tricky depending on who you are playing with. What are our other win conditions? Well, we have Sigil of the Empty Throne. We have, to an extent, Dovescape, which is a bit tough because we're missing... isn't it Form of Dragon Dovescape is the combination that works, but I could be wrong. Dovescape is... I don't know if I like Dovescape here, but it is technically a win condition. And then we have... where are you? For Opalescence to turn all of our enchantments into creatures and attack with them. That's not including Beats, Platinum Empyrean, Elder Scale Worm, Asperia. All these creatures can attack. And our commanders can ultimate for what it's worth. And unfortunately, Kiora is the best one, and I think I would keep that. So our win conditions... Oh, we have one more that is the best one. I put that off. But I would say definitely Sigil of the Empty Throne is fine. I think it's fine to create angels and attack with. I've never had a problem with this card. I think it's a card whose power level depends on the rest of your deck, so I think that's fine. Dovescape, like I said, I don't like. I don't like you attacking with your creatures. I think they're too... You want to hold back for defenses. Even our Asperia, especially Elder Scale, that could possibly keep you alive. I guess that works... Yes, that works with Dovescape. Dovescape, Elder Scale Worm forms a lock of sorts to stop you from being removed. That being said, there are creatures that destroy creatures, so you're not necessarily out of the fire, but it is something. Plus, with you can't fog anymore once you have Dovescape out. And Kiora, putting a 9/9 every turn is rather good. But the real good one, the best one, is Helm of Obedience and Rest in Peace. And this is what I would call probably your ideal win condition. I would build with this in mind. And I think I'm going to add one more that's tangential, but this is really the one you should go for. It's funny because I didn't notice Luminarch Ascension, but I put my mouse over it. Luminarch Ascension, I should be clicking these, I'm sorry. Luminarch Ascension is also a fine win condition. So, all this to say, I do like your win conditions. I think they're fine. I would definitely cut the Electors, the Darksteel Reactor. I would probably consider cutting... No, and the rest are fine, honestly. I think the rest are fine. I don't think I have a problem with any of them. Luminarch Ascension is close, but I think at this point it's worth having, and there's no big problem there. Okay, let's look at some other cards I want to cut before we go into suggestions. Our Planeswalkers aren't ideal. I'll keep Kiora the Crashing Wave, but Narset Transcendent, Tamiyo Field Researcher, and Tamiyo the Moon Sage aren't great. They're a lot of mana for what they are, what they do, and they don't really... None of their emblems win you the game. Tamiyo just gives you... allows you to keep putting cards back into your hand. I believe that's a replacement effect, so even with Rip you get them back, but I'm not sure. Though Tamiyo Field Researcher's ultimate is technically, Omniscience for non-lands. I guess that is just Omniscience, sorry. Even then, that's not that good because you need your cards to actually win you the game, and it's not like you can protect them with a lot of counter magic. I just saw a game recently with friends where one of my friends played Omniscience and they had Omniscience and Leyline of Anticipation out. So all of their cards were free and instant speed, and they did not win the game. So Omniscience does not always win. And the thing is, they drew a lot. They wheeled like 4 times, and they just did not draw into anything to win the game. So do not assume Omniscience will win you the game. It just enables you to get to your wins faster. And Narset Transcendence is, I guess, shuts down your opponents. That's not a win condition, really. So I would probably cut those, and I'll give you at least 2 Planeswalkers to put in place. And then looking at the rest, there's a few that stick out to me. Aura Thief seems strange. If you're in the right meta where all your opponents are playing really good enchantments, I would say, okay, yeah, that's good, but otherwise I would cut it. Looking down here, Asperia feels weird to me. Asperia is a 6 mana, whenever a creature attacks you or a Planeswalker, you may draw a card. They're just going to remove Asperia, honestly. I don't think it's too much. It's not a problem. They can board clear through it. If they're going to attack you and defeat you, they're going to do it. But granted, considering you have such fog abilities, they probably won't do that. They'll probably just ignore you and attack you in a different way, whether it be Aristocrats, Combo, Burn, things like that. So Asperia, I don't really like her. She's just a lot of mana for what she does. And I think, you already have enough things to stop your opponents from wanting to attack you. And they're not going to attack you and to let you draw cards. So I don't think it's really, really good there. Plea for Guidance feels like a lot of mana. 6 mana to get 2 enchantments into your hand. That's a lot. You can do better, honestly. Whether it be just straight up card draw, in green or blue, or Enlightened Tutor at 1 mana to put an enchantment or artifact on top of your deck, which I think is much stronger, you're going to be a lot happier. 6 mana is just a lot of mana. And late game, even if you draw this, you're going to have to tap out the majority of your mana to do this. And that's going to be real rough for your opponents who are probably ready to interact with you. You could play Path to Exile as an instant. That's the one that's missing here, but the rest of these look rather good. Chromatic Lantern can just go. I'm going to suggest some other cards, mainly in lands, to kind of fix your mana. Chromatic Lantern is a crutch that we play with when our mana base cannot, represent the deck's colors. And even then, I don't know, 4 colors to 5 colors is usually when I care about it, and it just shouldn't be in here. If your mana base is going to be in trouble without Chromatic Lantern, it's not going to be any better with Chromatic Lantern because your opponents are sure to notice and destroy the Lantern. And this is pretty likely, you're just going to play the Lantern when you already really had the mana in the first place. So it's just not a good card. It's just a 3 mana rock. Looking through enchantments, let's see. Most of these are pretty good. Enchanted Evening is always one that I never quite know how I feel about it. I get it. I get that it's very strong in certain situations, especially because it turns your opponent's enchantments, permanents into enchantments. It allows you to interact with it. Pretty sure there is a combo here that I always forget about, but it is also a 5 mana spell that sometimes does nothing, and for that reason, I do not love it. Likewise, Doubling Season is like one of those cards that works like half good. Like it's almost like a combo piece, but it's a combo piece to a 2-card combo that doesn't win you the game, right? Doubling Season with like any of your counters to win cards just doubles the speed, which isn't crazy good. And with, Sigil of the Empty Throne, all of a sudden you get 2 4/4s. That doesn't win you the game. It's neat, but it doesn't win you the game. Then, where are we here? The one that's the most interesting to me is, let me see. Why can't I find Luminarch Ascension? Because it both doubles how fast you get access to the activated ability and then doubles the angels that come out of it. So I like that the most. But Luminarch Ascension is sometimes really good to just play turn 2, and then inevitably you'll get the counters. So having a combo with a 5 mana card, especially since it's a card that requires you to pay mana into it, is not ideal. Finally, I do recognize kind of the idea is that you can use Doubling Season with your commanders to ultimate them immediately. And interestingly, you don't ultimate the commander that I want you to ultimate. Koira needs 1 additional counter to ultimate, which is funny. But I do recognize being able to immediately Narset or be able to immediately Tamiyo Field Researcher is rather good. But once again, is that worth the card? I honestly, I don't know. You don't have a hard time protecting your planeswalkers. You have lots of fog abilities. Are you really like that? Like you really need to ultimate these planeswalkers that badly? You know, I don't see it, honestly. So with that in mind, I think I'd like to take out Doubling Season if we can. It just dawned onto me that you were saying that your deck is a mill deck when the mill card is Helm of Obedience. That's kind of deceptive, right? Because it's more like a combo card, but I won't say more than that. Okay. So those are generally my thoughts on the cards in there. Most of them are pretty good. I just realized another card that needs to be in here, which I think we'll start with. And that card is very easily Smothering Tithe. Smothering Tithe feels very notably missing from a deck like this. And as long as we're in budget, I might as well also mention Esper Sentinel. Both of these are some of the strongest white cards that have been printed recently. I think you should definitely play them. I don't want to put too many of these cards into the deck because, frankly, I find they homogenize decks and they're not really as fun to play. But these two are the strongest ones, I would argue. There might be some arguments for a few more, such as the... what is the one green card that makes mana based on islands your opponents control? I can never remember what that's called. But these are like almost CEDH cards, but Esper Sentinel is just a fantastic draw engine for your deck that wants to, you know, hide away and kind of gain value turn by turn. And Smothering Tithe is just one of the best cards in Commander, especially when you're in enchantments. So I would very much so like to suggest these cards to you. But I don't have too many generic, maybe we'll see. Something that I immediately thought of was Ephemerate. And the reason I thought Ephemerate is that I wanted you to ephemerate your Eternal Witness. This deck at times is okay playing with cards that are not always ideal to set up a 2-card engine, and there's no better 2-card engine than Ephemerate and Eternal Witness, right? You ephemerate the Eternal Witness, you get a card back off of Rebound. Ephemerate comes back to hit the Eternal Witness, and bam, we've got another. We put the Ephemerate back in our hand, and then we Ephemerate Eternal Witness. So we're putting an extra card into our hand every 2 turns. No, it's every turn for 1 white mana because you cast it right away. So with that in mind, it gets you very far ahead and lets you get your pieces back, which I like. I will say, what was it? There was something here about Rebound, right? Is that from another deck? Did I imagine that? I don't know if I imagined that. Maybe I'll come back to this. I remember something about cards you have having Rebound. Oh yes, it was Narset. Yeah, Narset Transcendent. Sorry, this. I saw Rebound and I remembered this. Narset Transcendent's Rebound ability. Part of the reason I wanted her out of here is that what does that do here? I'm just really, really confused because the only spells it really benefits are Cultivate, Kodama's Reach. Doesn't affect the tutors because you need to draw the card, because if you tutor with Sylvan Tutor or Worldly Tutor, it gets shuffled away when you rebound it because it rebounds before you draw it. But then like board clears maybe to stop anyone. I guess Plea of Guidance. But the majority of your cards, like Fog and then Fog again on your turn, is not ideal. So, yeah, Narset Transcendence is really bad. Sorry, I got ADHD kicked in there. All right, let's see. While we're talking about Narset, let's look at some Planeswalkers. I've got 2 to suggest. Narset, part of her Veils, is just a rather good commander. You can cast her out and just leave her at 5 to prevent your opponents from drawing additional cards per turn. Or you can use her immediately to start digging for a number of your very, very strong enchantments or lock pieces. So I find this to be a rather, rather good card here. Just got reprinted, making her rather cheap. Or maybe she was always cheap, but she is a very, very good card. So I would recommend her easily. Likewise, a little more expensive is Teferi Time Raveler, who is another very good planeswalker that will shut down your opponent's counter spells and their ability to cast spells outside of their turn, outside of sorcery speed. With that in mind, you get to then play, if you wish, the very, very good combo with Knowledge Pool, which will immediately lock your opponents from ever playing any spells again. Now, note that you do actually need to protect Teferi, which means you either need to board wipe or you need to ensure that you have a defense with enough fogs or enough fog effects so that you can make sure Teferi doesn't get knocked off of the battlefield. Knowledge Pool, if you have 2 fogs, you can cast one of those fogs. It's clumsy, but it works. You cast the first fog, it gets exiled, you cast something else. Then you cast a second fog, casting the first fog. It's weird, but it works. Knowledge Pool is really, really good because it gives you a huge collection of spells to cast from. With Teferi out, they cannot cast any spells. So you can, if you want, use this as a win condition, with Teferi being the lock for that. But either way, I would heavily consider playing Teferi. I think you'd be very, very happy with that card. That -3 is just really good to draw your card. You'll have a great time. Something else that I noticed that I thought you would also enjoy having is White Plume Adventurer. I don't really love the initiative, but this is a rather good card. Both because it gives you the initiative to immediately tutor for a land among a bunch of other abilities turn by turn, but much more importantly, I wonder, can we flip this? Yeah. With all of these different triggers you can do from the Undercity, I mean, it's okay. A lot of them don't matter, but they do add up value over time. But honestly, the main reason I was thinking the White Plume Adventurer is that it's another untap ability, that untaps one of your creatures on each of your opponent's turn, and Angus Mackenzie can be untapped each turn, which I think is rather good. So already a good creature with a good ability with an additional fun thing for your commander. Then, very cleanly, I'd like you to play at least Farseek and 3 Visits for additional, land ramp, because these are just good cards. You can play way more than that if you'd like. I leave that up to you. I think all of your ramp is at a premium because you play a slow controlling deck. Getting your lands into play is really, really good, but at least play Farseek and 3 Visits because both of them can get shock lands or your Triome, so you'll be very, very happy there. And is it Spara's? That is the Spara's headquarters is your Triome. I don't think you are playing it. You are not. This is your Tri-land. Please play your Tri-land. It is still reasonably priced, so I would pick it up when I can. It is a great card. It cycles away. It's just a fantastic Tri-land. Then finally, the one thing that can potentially eat away at that large budget you've provided is fetch lands. You're in 3 colors, so I believe you can play everything but 1 fetch land. I believe the only one you cannot play would be the Bloodstained Mire because it's red-black, but every single other one will grab one of your colors. Do you need to play the 9 other fetch lands? No, but you could though. I think pretty cleanly you could play as many as you wanted, but if you were like, Cursed, give me a number, I'd say you'd be probably happy with 4. Grab 4 fetch lands, take 2 plains, 2 forests. There you go. You're in business. You'll be very, very happy. There's a few other cards probably that I'm missing that would be really nice here. Looking at the lands right now, like Llanowar that would turn all your lands into forests. And most likely, don't know if there are the lands that come in untapped as long as you have 2 or more opponents. Those ones should probably be played here because you can play all 3, the white-green, white-blue, blue-green versions to have them always come in untapped. And I think that's generally going to be the things that I have to say right now. I do really like this deck. I think this is I am very impressed by it. It's very much so the kind of deck that I enjoy, where it represents a deck type as an archetype, as opposed to a specific kind of how do we put this? Like like, it's not a tribal deck. It's not a single combo deck. It is a deck that represents a a part of the game it brings. Group hug, group slug, you know, stacks, heavy control. These kind of decks show up and you know what kind of game it's going to be now that they're part of the game. Even though they don't sit there and like always set up the same combo or always set up the same, you know, win condition, I think this kind of vibe is really fun to have. Very quickly. Starfield of Nyx might be better than Opalescence. Sorry, I just thought of this. As it will allow you on upkeep to reanimate an enchantment each turn, and has at five enchantments, your other enchantments are now creatures. I tend to see that as a downside. I guess it's not the same because Opalescence obviously is there to, with the combo of Enchanted Evening, to animate your opponent's creatures, their lands into enchantments, and then to destroy all enchantments or to start pinging down your enchantments. I don't know. I don't. Yeah, their lands turn into creatures and then you board clear and they're all gone. I don't know to what degree you want to do that. I don't like that being an end of a game. But if you want using Opalescence for that reason, that's fair. And the Starfield of Nyx will not be better. But Starfield of Nyx is closed and has sick art. So if you're using it more to beat down, which I don't imagine you would, but if that's what you want, that's an option. Yeah, I like this kind of deck. I also like that every time I look at the list again, I'm finding a different combo within it, which makes it both fun, albeit very difficult to understand for new players. But hey, that's their problem, I guess. No, I like this. I think this is a very, very fun deck. So to kind of go over my suggestions again, definitely you could go up a few lands, maybe to 36, 37. Put in the fetch lands, you'll find a lot of joy in them. Put in some more ramp with Farseek and 3 visits at least. Remove some of our planeswalkers and replace them with stronger planeswalkers. Remove some of our counter-based win conditions. They're just a little clunky, unfortunately. Definitely play Smothering Tithe and think about Knowledge Pool as a different win condition. I think that's generally it. I think the deck will be much stronger if you do those things and a little more consistent in mana. But I'd love to see another draft of this deck. This deck is really, really cool looking, and I'd love to see more of it. And if you'd like to send me that other draft, please do by looking in the video description below. You can send me any deck this way. And if you want to, like our deck builder, bring this deck list to the front of the queue, you will be very, very much so able to do that with a link down below. And finally, like, comment, subscribe, do that whole thing. Thank you so much, Sharok, or Sharok? I'm going to say Sharok. Thank you so much for supporting the channel and sending your deck. Your deck looks super, super cool. And updating an older deck is also a lot of fun. There's so many new options that I haven't even gotten into and cards you could be playing. I wanted to give you the first kind of general outlook. And then if you want to have a more specific outlook on things such as, you know, other enchantments to play that have come out that are really strong, or, you know, things you might be missing like Mystic Remora, we can do that again. But I think you already have a really good start here. All right. Good luck.